Okay, we're to the last part of part C here. So displaying quantitative data, this is a histogram. So we can see on the left is a dot plot. You can see each individual value there. You can't really see each individual value. They're kind of in bins. We call those bins, but they're kind of like buckets or something where it looks like it goes from about 1.5 to 1.75. Any duration and minutes that's between 1.5 and 1.75, and that goes in that first bin or bucket there. Then anything between 1.75 and 2, etc. So you're just kind of putting these things into bins or buckets, and you've broken it up in certain ways. So you can still see the shape. In fact, sometimes you can see the shape better with a histogram than with the individual dot plots, but it's just a different way of looking at the data. Histogram shows each interval as a bar. So the heights of the bars show the frequencies, or in some cases, the relative frequencies. That would be the percentages. In this case, it looks like just straight up counts or frequencies of each interval. That's a dot plot. On the right, it's histogram. Into equal widths. So that's important that the widths are equal. You can see that the widths are always equal for the bins there. How to make a histogram. So you get all this data here on the bottom here. How do you break that up into stuff? Choose equal width intervals. So like on this one, looks like it goes from about 3.1 to maybe 23. So 3 to 23. So maybe 0 to 25. So maybe by fives. That would only be 5 bins though. If you did it that way, that might not be enough. Sometimes people want a certain number of bins. Maybe 5 to 10 is a good number. So you could go with 5, but you could also break it down a little differently if you needed to. Make a table that shows the frequency or count of each individual in each interval. So like if we did it, again, I didn't see, is there one bigger than 25? Maybe there is, I didn't see it. Where is that, 23? I just don't see it, I don't know. Okay, so you can count the numbers that are in there between each interval. And so this one would have 6 intervals, right? Between 0 and 5, from 5 to 10, from 10 to 15. Notice technically on the right, it does not include 5. On the left, the next interval does include 5, including 5 all the way to a little less than 10, and then 10 all the way to a little less than 15. So probably a subtle point you probably don't have to know, but it's one of those nuances it's nice to know. And say when you do this, make that frequency table, you draw the horizontal and vertical axis, label the axis, and then scale the axis. So you always want to do that first as far as the scaling the axis and labeling it there. Then you have to figure out the percentage and say, well, 20, the biggest percentage we have is 20 out of however many there are there. And kind of go from there and figure out what that percentage is. Draw the bars above the intervals. The bar heights, again, correspond to either the frequency or the relative frequency, depending what you're measuring in. That'd be a very nice bar chart. You can see that skewed to the right. Median is probably between 5 and 10, I'm guessing, and we can figure it out if we needed to, etc. So little slight difference. Again, this is like the nuances here. So histogram, the bars are all next to each other. They're smashed together. They're grouped by, some grouping of, this to this, usually with numbers, whereas a bar chart has categories. So it's categorical data, not quantitative data. So that would be the biggest difference, and they're separated as well. There's actually separation between the bars. Histogram is for quantitative, and a bar graph shows categorical. So they show different groups or categories there. Okay, so how many states have you visited? I've visited all but one, Alaska, I haven't been to. so in this one, let's see. So I just want to talk to you how you do this by hand, or at least start out how you do it by hand. Here there's a bunch of 30 students. So we need to figure out, so the lowest I'm just writing down so I can have a bearing. So the lowest I see is like a 5. The biggest I see is 31. So you got to figure out your bin width. It looks to me like 5 is a good bin width there. So you could scale out your axis. You could even start at 5. That's okay in this case. 10, 15, 20, 25. We're supposed to mark those equally. Mine looks maybe a little bit janky there, but I'm trying. And that's what we do when we don't have a ruler and stuff. Okay, so then you would figure out how common, you have to do kind of a frequency chart, like how many are between 5 and 10. I can see that, but not including 10, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, whoops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so I have 8. So I'm just going to do a frequency. That looks like the most common, so I'm not going to go more than 10, 2, 4, 6, 8. So numbering by 2, so 8 would go up to this bar, to there, and down. And then I would count how many between 10 and 15. So including 10, but not including 15. Ooh, there are more. Maybe I should have gone higher. I didn't realize that. Okay, so not including 15. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So I have 13. So I do need to go a little higher. So 13 would be about to there. And then between 15 and 20, so not including 20, but do include 15. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 2, 4, 6, so somewhere around there. And then including 20, but not including 25, so 2. And 25 to 30 would be 1, so half of that, so something like that. So your bar graph would probably look something like that. If you did that, make sure to put a label at the bottom, what this represents in context. So this is like number of states visited, and this is frequency. And I did not do a relative frequency. Relative frequency would have been percentages. Let's see what theirs looks like. Probably a little better than mine. They did it by 4s, right? So theirs is going to look a little different. Oh, this shape is basically the same, right? To me, it looks skewed to the right. I actually like mine a little bit better, maybe. I don't know. They're both pretty good. They scaled it out really nicely there and did that. So they wanted a few more bars. So they have 7 bins, and I only had 6 there. So sometimes 8 is almost perfect. I feel like 8 is a really good number there, but it's hard to get 8 every time. What proportion of 30 students have visited at least 16? So 16 or more. So that would be 5 in that first bin above 16, 6, 7, 8. So 8 out of 30. So 8 out of 30 is 26.7% of the students have visited at least 16 states. And that's your lesson for today.